Hey, what's going on, y'all? Eric Moser here with Code Red Conversations. Thanks for joining me this afternoon, this morning, whenever you are happen to be watching this program. I just want to let y'all know I appreciate y'all joining me so we can have a good, solid, candid discussion as we typically do. Do the best you can. If you hear me well, if the audio is coming across well, give me a comment below and drop a comment in the chat. Let me know that you're hearing things well, that there's no issues whatsoever. But it's good to see y'all again. And yeah, let's go ahead and just jump in. Let's just get the ball rolling right away. Again, I appreciate y'all already stepping in to have a good discussion. We're going to be addressing. I'm going to hit on just a couple of issues today, but hopefully we'll have a nice solid. Hey, what's up, brother? Good to see you. Good to see you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're gonna have a good conversation today. We're gonna talk about some of the current events, things that are going on right now. Man, I'm hoping y'all are having a good New Year so far. I don't know how you are on. Hey, Jackie, how you doing? I don't know how you are on New Year's resolutions. I'm not so big on them, but I think everyone kind of has a somewhat of a reset, for lack of a better term, especially these days when it comes to the new year. I try to get the ball rolling. I see you, brother. I see you. I tried to get the ball rolling before the new year began, but man, it was so hectic at the household. COVID came through, kind of jacked everybody up, but me. I was the only one, unvaccinated me, only one who walked in. I mean, no one in the house is vaccinated, but I was the only one that walked away. I had a little bit of a sniffle, a little bit of congestion in my throat for maybe 2 days. But anytime I tested, it always came back negative. But I was the only one who walked away not sick. I was just taking care of everyone. So by the grace of God, I'm definitely thankful for that. Happy New Year to all y'all out there. I hope that the Lord blesses you this year. And if you have goals, you know what? Let's try to be consistent, because I heard a study. I think I read a report maybe about a week ago that said typically in the second week in January, over 80% of people who threw out some New Year's resolutions have already failed. 80%. That sucks. That's just plain ridiculous. What I'm seeking to do is obviously be more consistent. Man, this last year there were so many reasons, so many. Well, I don't want to give excuses, but there were so many things that came up that I allowed to get in the way of me being consistent. What's up, Lon? How you doing, brother? That I allowed to get in the way of me being consistent in posting regular material and trying to help Code Red Conversations grow. And one of the biggest things I can do is just be consistent. So I'm going to ask y'all out there, anyone who appreciates what I do, when I post something, if you could share it. I know sometimes some of the things I post are pretty controversial, but some of y'all don't care. I already know. But if anything you see that you feel comfortable in sharing, I would greatly appreciate if you did that. And also, if you come across any content that you find interesting, send it my way. Anything police related, tactics related, related to situational awareness. Someone just, if you see a good video where a crime is taking place, a questionable video about a police tactic or a police use of force, anything you have, send it my way, and that'll help me maintain my level of consistency. I would greatly appreciate it. Some of y'all already do, and I definitely, and I'm definitely thankful for y'all. But just to help me stay consistent, that would be very cool. So let's jump into our first topic today, where this is a video, or it was an article that I came across that talked about the amount of shootings that have taken place recently when it comes to the police. I mean, y'all know how I feel about that. That I think that one of the prime reasons is this. Well, you know what? Let me just jump into this video. Let's show the video and then we'll have a conversation. I'd love feedback from y'all. So if y'all have any thoughts on this, please share them. Cool? Cool. All right, let's go ahead and get this ball rolling here.
Democrat-led cities saw soaring crime rates, record, in fact, highs for murders back in 2021. Among them, Chicago. You probably knew that. That's where police just released a report showing 797 homicides in the city last year alone. That's the most in a quarter century. In Houston, the murder rate went up 17%, while right here, the nation's capital, the deadliest year since 2003. Lucas Tomlinson has more on that.
Let me pause right there. Just think about that. Think about that for a minute. 797, did he say? 797 homicides in Chicago. And it's been consistently bad for years. Nothing new. But you're talking about almost 800 homicides. That is mind-boggling. And it seems to be going up consistently year after year. Year after year, it seems to be going up consistently. Let me look at one comment here. I'm going to add you here. Show your comment, Ron. Where is the outrage for the women cop being murdered? We're going to get to that, brother. We're going to get to that here shortly. Where's Al Sharpton? Man, that dude don't care about, first of all, he don't care about white folks. He definitely don't care about the police. Man, I grew up in New Jersey. So most of the vast majority of our news stations were New York news stations. So we've long known, most folks, that Al Sharpton was just a huckster, a charlatan, a joke. I remember him during the Tawana Brawley incident. I'm dating myself a bit, but I'm 51. I'm about to be 52 here shortly. But I remember growing up, the whole Tawana Brawley incident, the whole Tawana Brawley case, and his appearances on Maury Povich, and I think Geraldo. The dude is just pure comedy. Like, no one took him seriously whatsoever. I got some weird comments on here. I don't know if I got somebody jumping in. Somebody got hacked or whatever. But yeah, no one's taken Al Sharpton seriously for years. No one with any sense anyway. That's the way I look at it. All right, let's get the ball rolling here.
For many cities across the nation, last year will be remembered as a violent one. In 2021, Chicago saw more murder than any time in the past quarter century.
Wow.
16 cities across America, stretching from Portland, Oregon to Jackson, Mississippi to Philadelphia, all experiencing a record-breaking number of homicides.
Very interesting. Oh, hopefully y'all can see that. I paused it a bit. I don't think it's showing up well.
In one of his first interviews since taking office, New York's new mayor outlined his plan to facing a record-breaking number of homicides.
But a lot of these cities, what do they have in common? I think we all know politically. We all know who's at the helm politically in a lot of these cities. Just the unfortunate reality. These folks, when it comes down to crime and the political left, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on politically, it's clear for years the left has turned a blind eye to the political. They've turned a blind eye to the crime in these inner cities. Blind eye. They don't even talk about it. Locally, there's some people that talk about it, but when you look at it on a national level, if you bring it up, it's political suicide. Honestly. If you bring it up as a black Democrat or a white Democrat, for that matter, talking about the crime rate needs to be handled and reduced in these communities, oh, you're just talking conservative or Republican talking points. You're a bigot. You're a racist. In the meantime, you have hundreds of people dying in these communities. Thousands. What am I talking about? Hundreds. Thousands of people dying in these communities year in and year out. And if you bring it up, this is the conundrum they put you in. If you bring it up, you're a racist. if you bring it up, you're a racist and you don't care and you don't seem to care about black folks and you're trying to deflect against the real problem, quote unquote, real problem of racism. But if you ignore it, then you only care when something bad happens to white folks. I mean, just look at this last year when that one young lady, her name escapes me, when she went camping or was driving along with her boyfriend and he ended up killing her and he ends up shooting himself somewhere. I think it was in Florida. They found him in his bones or his remains somewhere. It's a lose-lose situation when you're dealing with these people. It just is what it is. Lose-lose. If you talk about the crime rate in the inner city, you're a racist and you trying to deflect the reality of racism. And if you bring it up or if you ignore it, then you don't care. And the only time you ever talk about anything is when a white person is involved. How can you win with these folks? You can't. This is why I get so frustrated with them. And by the grace of God, I'm so thankful that my eyes were opened to all this, the games that these people play. And it's only gotten worse in more recent years. They were bad enough as it is, but it's only gotten worse. All right, let's get back to the video.
In one of his first interviews since taking office, New York's new mayor outlined his plan to fight crime.
We're going to go after gangs. We're going to take down some of the large gangs in our city. We're going to reinstitute a plainclothes anti-gun unit and zero in on those guns.
The city of Houston ended the year with a homicide.
I give him props for that. I give him a lot of props for that, especially in this. Let me make this bigger. I apologize, y'all. I give him a lot of props for that, especially in a city like New York, where I think that the everyday normal man, woman, their voices are being silenced by these radicals. The mere fact that he said that he was going to be tough on crime, I think that Hawk Newsom, that BLM activist, idiot, total idiot. BLM activist made the statement that they were going to burn stuff down, or if he tries to do anything about that, and he's still walking around free. That if that's not terroristic threats, I don't know what it is. What is? But he's BLM, or at least he's associated. I don't know if he's still with them anymore, but he's associated with BLM, so the man can pretty much do what he wants to do nowadays because people are afraid to come out and speak out against them in a lot of circles. Anyway.
Rate 17% higher than the previous year. This despite Houston in 2020 voting to increase police funding. Murder here in the nation's capital and suburban Maryland soared last year to levels not seen in more than a decade.
I'm not sure if Houston at any point tried to defund their police. If anyone knows, in the comments, put it in the comment section. I'm gonna go through the comment section after the chat area, after I get through this video. But if anyone knows if Houston at any time eliminated some funds out of from their police department, let me know. I don't recall, but there were so many cities that did. I wouldn't be shocked.
Reflecting the growing violent trends nationwide. Homicides in Washington, D.C. rose for a fourth consecutive year, surpassing 200 for the first time in nearly 2 decades. In Maryland's Prince George's County outside D.C., there were more killings than any time in 14 years. Here's Chicago's top cop on the threat his own officers face every day on the streets.
76 police officers have been shot or shot, standing in the line of fire since the beginning of the year, protecting the people of Chicago.
76. Just in the city of Chicago. We're going to get into that. I'm going to pull up the image that I got off of Instagram talking about. I think I got it right here waiting. Well, I'll pull it up on my main Instagram. But he was just talking about Chicago. That's it. Just the city of Chicago. Man, oh man, I'm telling you, not that that's stunning or anything like that, considering that city's violent history, but which brings me back to my main point. Well, let me finish this video, and so I can get to my main point.
Some critics blame defunding the police as a reason for the spike in murder and other violent crimes.
Duh.
Others cite the pandemic, blaming lockdowns for people not working or kids not in school. In Washington, Lucas Tomlinson, Fox News.
Oh my gosh. Let me tell you something. It is ridiculously obvious to understand that what caused the rise in crime. And if you don't believe that it has anything to do with the defunding of the police, then I just question what world you're living in. You look at it's happened all over the place. Every city that has had a major incident, we're talking Baltimore with the Freddie Gray incident, the Michael Brown incident, New York, everything that happened last year with the year prior with the George Floyd incident. Every city that was hit with these massive riots, or where the police were told to pull back, saw an increase in crime. I don't know what and not even during the pandemic. There are other incidents that took place prior to the pandemic. George Floyd, for instance, all the crime that swept through, the Michael Brown case, Freddie Gray, all of these were pre-pandemic. These people just refuse to want to own up to the reality that their policies are destructive and cost lives. They'll come up with any excuse that they can find to justify their foolishness. Every time I turn around, it's insane. Let me check out some of the comments here. Forgive me, y'all, for not getting into it earlier. I just wanted to get into it a little more, be a little more consistent with getting my points across, because I can get going. I already know that. Yeah, Ron, that's the reality. It's the unfortunate reality, but these people are just nuts. Philly, no doubt. Did you notice, as far as I know, now I can't say it completely, but a lot of those cities that they brought up, that they showed, they all had a similar political leaning. I wish we would just start waking up. We, especially those of us in the Black community, we are convinced that I've had some people, I was having a chat conversation a few months ago with a friend of mine who's from Chicago, and he was saying Chicago needs some Black folks to lead. And I'm like, what's Lightfoot doing? What's she doing right now? We have to get out of this mindset that if someone looks like us, that they automatically have our best interests at heart. That's just not necessarily true. If that was the reality, then the inner city, then the Black on Black crime rate wouldn't be 3, 4, 5 times higher than it is in any other community, even though we make up less than 13% of the population. That wouldn't be the case. We need to be rational with our arguments and the way we think these things through. It just ain't true just because someone looks like us that they automatically care about us. It's just not true. We need to look at which policies are going to help us flourish and going to basically leave us alone so that we can do our businesses and be protected. The government's primary role should be to protect its citizens. That is a constitutional perspective, but even greater than that, that's a biblical perspective. The government's role is to protect its citizens and to suppress evil. My boy lives in Chicago suburbs and used to take his wife to the city. Now he won't go near it. I don't blame him. Your boy's smart. Your boy's smart, because all that foolishness going on in that city. I was in Chicago in July speaking at a conference at one of the local churches. And man, I'll tell you, the church that we visited, man, they were bold. They were going out there witnessing, they were all up in the hood. and they're already dealt with a lot of garbage. They had a lot of backlash from the previous year because of the whole George Floyd situation. The church was very actively opposed to the ideology of BLM, and one of his members was a owner of a popular restaurant. Was it Mimi's? I'm probably drawing a blank on it. Anyway, I'm probably getting it wrong. But they took so much heat that the restaurant ultimately had to shut down. But man, those congregants, the ones that survived, that didn't quit, that didn't bounce up out of there when it got too hot, man, they are passionate for the Lord. And they were out there. Some of them were out there sharing the gospel, from what I hear, in the midst of the riots. And that boldness is amazing. And I totally got off topic, but anyway. We'll be 70 in 3 days. Hey, happy birthday, Lon, if I don't see you, if I don't hear from you prior to that. Hopefully the Lord will allow you to see those days. Who's this here? Bring it up because, where are we at here? Hold on. Bring it up because most of the crime rate are by Black young men. Unfortunately, that is very accurate. Especially when we're addressing the violent crime. No question about it. That is an unfortunate reality. And as long as we ignore it, it'll continue to grow. It's like if you have a growth on your arm and you don't really want to talk about it because you don't want to acknowledge the fact that you could have skin cancer, that's not going to make it go away. That's just going to make it fester and grow. And who knows, it could become more lethal. And that is unfortunately a lot of what we're dealing with when it comes to addressing some of the issues within the Black community. Think about the many people who no longer go into Chicago because of crime. Now think about the other big cities going through the same serious loss of business. Absolutely. And in a time like this, post-COVID lockdowns, when we're already struggling economically as a nation, it just doesn't make any sense. I know the people in these communities are crying out for help. I know a lot of them are, and they acknowledge the issue. But when I talk big picture, when I talk on a national, federal level, or a lot of the national mainstream media outlets, it's almost as if they're afraid to talk about it. A few years ago, even Don Lemon talked about it, and he made a whole lot of sense. Now that dude won't touch it. I don't know if he's changed his mind on the issue when it comes down to the crime and young Black men and whatnot, or is he just afraid to talk about it because he knows it's a political hotbed and it won't look good for him? Let me see here. Joining, once she was already shot, disarmed. The only reason, all right, yeah, we'll get into that here shortly. Yeah, Brett, it did reopen. It did reopen recently, from what I heard. Look at the insurrection of the Capitol. They arrested a lot of people, but look at riots around the country. Hardly any of the rioters were arrested afterwards, but insurrectionists, yes, arrested are most white, and they are called racist. Arrest a rioter, the police are being racist. That's the truth, man. And that's another issue that pretty much gets me really fired up, was the double standard that took place. You literally had politicians, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, if I'm not mistaken, various other politicians supporting Nancy Pelosi, supporting these rioters. Michelle Obama saying mostly peaceful consistently. Over 220 cities across the country, over $2 billion in damage, over 24 people murdered, it is estimated, in relation to the riots, through the 2020 riots. And where's the big federal investigation behind that? It won't happen. And you know why? Because there are too many people, too many lefties who got their hands in it. And they don't want any part of that. They don't want to be exposed, but yet put all the attention on January 6th. And I'm not trying to act like January 6th was a good thing. It was terrible. It was ridiculous. But a lot of this talk about it has been overblown, in my opinion. Overblown, all because it's politically expedient. It's helpful to them politically. It's absolutely nuts. But this is where we are right now, y'all. This is where we are right now as a nation. It's very, very sad. What you got there, Dwayne? And all of these liberal-run cities, the citizens and officers need to seek their recall. Unseating, seek their recall. Unseating, as this is becoming increasingly, blatantly, purposely not cared about. And the people are just statistics used to become rich while having them in submission to government. Good points, man. I don't know if I was stumbling over that or you just wrote it poorly. Probably a little bit of both. I'm just messing with you, brother. Just messing with you. But in all honesty, that you pretty much hit it on the head. Those people out there with the whole defunding the police, and even some were proponents of abolishing the police to the point to where there are certain police agencies were literally shut down in some cities. How do you live in an area where you allow something like that to happen? It just blows my mind. Is it the fact that people just aren't listening? That's the only way I could think of. Only thing I could think of. Because I can only imagine if it was me, I would be out there getting my people together and we'd be protesting. We'd be protesting and letting our voices be heard. But you can only do so much as an individual. I understand that. No sweat, bro. No, that was Dwayne, I think, the one I was reading. Anyway, it's all good. Okay. But let me go on to the next section here, what I want to talk about. I want to talk about which is in relation to this whole discussion about crime. In direct relation to it. Hope y'all can see that. Look at this. Look at this mess. This is from I pulled this article from the Fraternal Order of Police. Law enforcement officers shot and killed in 2021. There were 346 officers shot this year. 346. Or 2021, excuse me. 63 officers killed by gunfire. 130 law enforcement officers were shot in 103 separate ambush-style attacks. Now, we're not talking about incidents that, when we're talking about the ambushes in particular, we're not just talking about incidents that just escalated. We're talking about people who had planned to set these officers up so they can gun them down. And when you look at it says here further, ambush-style attacks on law enforcement this year, 2021, are up 115%, more than double from this time in 2020. And I posted on my Instagram page, and if you're not following me on Instagram, please come on over and check it out. Go on over and give me a follow on Instagram. I definitely appreciate it. But this is what I said on Instagram. This is what happens when you blindly follow the mainstream media, liberal politics, and uninformed celebrities. You start believing the lie that police brutality, in particularly against minorities, is an epidemic, when the data clearly shows that it is not. Then start attacking cops, when in all actuality, it is an extremely rare event. Not that we should overlook these events. Any level of police brutality is bad. And I don't know why I always feel like as if I have to say that, but there's always somebody typically who hears that and then they just assume, oh, so you just don't care about it? Stop. But we need to understand the facts and stop believing the lies. Lives are at stake. A nation that doesn't respect the rule of law is clearly on a self-destructive path. Now let's back up a little bit. Let's unpack what I was saying earlier. This is what happens when you blindly follow the mainstream media, liberal politics, and uninformed celebrity. Just think about it. Every year, think about every major incident. The shooting that took, if you look at the amount of violent attacks that escalated after obviously the George Floyd incident, the amount of attacks on law enforcement shot up. And these are an example of the numbers right here. Michael Brown incident, same thing. Stephen Clark incident, same thing. Freddie Gray, same thing. There was an increase in crime, an increase of attacks on law enforcement. I'm just drawing a blank on the name. Young man was it in Minneapolis? Who was the officer thought he might have been a felony suspect, pulled him over. The officer's name was Geronimo, was a Native American, or Hispanic guy. I think his first name was Geronimo. I'm just drawing a blank on the guy's name, but he got gunned down in front of his girlfriend with his kid in the back seat. Terrible incident, horrific incident. But there were some shootings. There was crime after that. There were attacks after that. If I'm not mistaken, after that was the Dallas shooting, where those 5 police officers, someone put in the comment what the name of the individual's name was in that incident. I know somebody knows what I'm talking about. The Minneapolis shooting where the officer shot the guy in the car. He thought he told him he legally was in possession of a gun. He was trying to reach for his ID. I don't know what went on in the car, but next thing you know, the officer just dumps rounds into the guy, and his girlfriend was filming it on Facebook Live. Anyway, somebody will bring it up, I'm sure. But shortly after that, if I'm not mistaken, you had the Dallas shooting where those 5 police officers were gunned down. And then there was another incident, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere down south, maybe in Alabama or somewhere, where there was another ambush. And then you had another incident in New York where 2 officers were killed, ambush style. And then when you back up and you examine the information, not in all cases, obviously, but a lot of times the information we initially get is bad. Jacob Blake, for instance, you had NBA players walking off the court, protesting. I always bring it up. Kenny the Jet Smith on Inside the NBA walked off the set. Fast forward a few weeks later, come to find out there's video footage of him, or an image of him a few days later with something in his hand looking like a karambit style knife. Fast forward even further, I think it was months later, he literally admits the fact that he had a knife in his hand. And after they tased him, he picked it up and started walking away and tried to enter his own vehicle. An unknown threat, unknown danger area, his vehicle. The officer has no idea what you're in possession, what you have in your car. No idea whatsoever. So you expect the officer, after you've already been combative, resisting, fighting, you expect the officer just to be totally cool with the idea of you picking your knife up, walking away. You already are in possession of a warrant. You already demonstrated violent tendencies, violent behavior. And you expect that officer to be cool with the idea of you going to your car. And you don't expect bad things to happen. But yet, in the beginning, what did we hear? White cop shoots unarmed black man. That was a complete load of crap. That was a complete lie. But yet it was just spun in the media exacerbate the already tense situations that are happening across our nation. And yet we continue to follow and believe these people. We assume it to be true. We got to be smarter than that. We have to be smarter than that. We are being, especially Black folks, we are being used and abused and manipulated for political gain because they know we have a tendency to respond emotionally. And it works pretty much every time. Every time. And we put people in our office who do not have our best interests at heart. Look at the abortion issue. Look at the abortion issue. How many million, when you look at 60, 70 million aborted, murdered children since Roe v. Wade, 20 million of those are from the Black community. And you mean to tell me you actually think these people have our best interests at heart? Open borders, the group that's impacted the most are underskilled Black males who lose jobs. That's a reality. Don't believe me? There's a LA Times report article that I posted. I posted it maybe a year ago. So, but if you typed in LA Times, immigration, Blacks, you'll see what pops up. African Americans, something along those lines. You'll see it pop up. And so don't tell me these people care about the Black community. They take our vote for granted. When they come on stage or they get on and they're speaking at a Black church, they start trying to act Black. I don't feel no ways tired, or they're going to put all y'all back in chains. All crap, nonsense. Just nonsense. But yet we have a tendency to want to believe it time and time again. They mock us. If you don't vote for me, if you don't know who to vote for between me and Donald Trump, you ain't Black. I mean, they just talk down to us any old way. What's up? What's up? Any old way. But yet we just go down there and we just continue to vote. You know what, Ron? It's a tough one, bro. It's a tough one. Me personally, continue to pray about it. Pray that people's eyes will be enlightened. First of all, they'll just wake up to the reality of their need for Christ, first and foremost. But then after that, people will just be awakened to the lies and the manipulation. And then it takes people like us who are bold enough to speak out on it, regardless of the attacks, regardless of being made fun of, regardless of being deplatformed, regardless of the reality that we may lose careers behind this. It just is what it is. It is such a political hotbed right now. We are moving. I was reading a book and it was talking about the concept of soft totalitarianism, where it's not the hard style, former Soviet Union style of totalitarian government, but we are inching very close, and they're using subtle tactics because we're still in a constitutional republic and a democratic, republic. Our government is still of the people, by the people, supposedly, but it's shifting slowly away from those principles. And ultimately, we are just in a situation where we have to be willing to risk loss in order to get people to hear us. Honestly, I get mocked all the time. I had a conversation or I had someone post on one of my YouTube videos, some ignorant old former person I used to work with had some stupid comments to make. And you know how bold people get. People love to be bold on social media, but that's another conversation for another day. But social media makes people bold who typically wouldn't be because they have their little gang mentality, or they can be anonymous. But you get idiots like that who like to mock, and they'll call you a racist or Uncle Tom or whatever, house N-word. They'll call you names because it works, because a lot of people eventually start to back down. They start to back away. They shy away from the controversy. In the meantime, they These people are pushing policies that are where they're causing people to hate their country, hate the police, hate Christianity, hate anything white folks. You're the enemy. Some of y'all need to wake up and realize that you have been deemed the enemy in our nation by a lot of folks. And some of y'all are just too afraid to speak up. You're too afraid to be called a bigot, too afraid that somebody in your job may not like what you have to say, and you might face some repercussions. Sorry, that's just the world we're living in. And if you're not willing to stand up for truth, I don't know, what are you willing to stand up for? Now, I know I'm not talking to everybody, but I'm talking to somebody out there. And they need to be bold. You need to speak up on these issues. You know you do. But you're living in fear. And I get it. Trust me, I don't always enjoy being controversial. I don't, believe it or not. All I know is that once the Lord saved me, and then I started being challenged, I started coming in contact with some good, sound Bible teaching. People, pastors, friends, books I'm reading, the scriptures, the Bible. I started challenging my own worldview began to be challenged. And I had to start making decisions as to, am I going to believe God's word, or am I going to continue going down this cultural path that I've been on as a Black man in the United States? Because as a Black man in the US, there are certain things that that you are just expected to do. You are expected to vote Democrat. You're expected to listen to certain people. And man, boy, don't step out of line. Don't step out of whatever you do. You better not step out of line, because there will be repercussions. You will be mocked. You'll be ridiculed. And in this day and age, this world we're living in, it could become violent, honestly. But I believe my desire is to stand for truth. And truth in a day and age where moral relativism is very prevalent. What's true for you may not be true for me. Truth is relative. There is no truth. When you have people promoting insane mantras like that, then there are dangerous repercussions. And in particularly for those of us who follow Christ, we have to be willing to speak the truth. We have to be more bold than ever. If there is a time where we need to be studying our word and on our knees in prayer and lifting up the brethren and encouraging the brothers and sisters, now is that time. Now is that time, because we can push towards a form of secular conservatism, which naturally has some foundations that are biblical, but it is ultimately hopeless in the grand scheme. Now, it's nice to know that crimes will be going down and people will be living nice moral lives, but in the grand scheme of things, it's like, where does that lead? Ultimately, you could still be lost. So I just want to throw that out there, because I don't ever want to lose sight of that. But on a different side, in the big picture, when it comes down to, or on a side note, on a similar note, when it comes down to proclaiming truth, we have to be willing to speak the truth. As controversial as that not may be, will be in times like this. People don't want to hear it. My perspective on COVID, and you can't even ask questions on these things nowadays. That's where we are. So being silenced ain't the way to go. Be bold. Man, they shut you down. So what? Find another avenue to speak. Find another platform. There are multiple platforms out there that are promoting free speech. Gab, Getter, Telegram. Man, I get so much good information on Telegram on a daily basis. You have good news and solid, reliable news outlets that aren't getting caught up in the liberal bias. You have Epic Times, NTD News, Breitbart News. There's some good sources of news. You have Daily Wire. There's some good sources. And for those of y'all who've never heard those newspapers and entities that I just mentioned, do yourself a favor. Start digging into these news sites. Start listening to NTD News. Start listening to the Epic Times. Start digging into Daily Wire, Breitbart, some of these different news outlets, because you cannot trust the mainstream media these days. You cannot. And I may do a live, because I've been talking about doing a video. Hey, what's up, Will? Hey, and when I mentioned earlier, someone who is always sending me good information, good content, Will Kalan, Will's always sending me something good. So I appreciate you, brother. I don't always use them, but I appreciate the content that you send and you share with me. I definitely appreciate that. But I'm telling y'all, we are in some really wild, crazy times. And we have to be bold. We have to be bold, y'all. We could lose our country. I think that is a very definite possibility, or it could be a shadow of what it once was, like not even close, if these people who are in charge continue going down the path that they're going down. Thank you, Lon. Appreciate that. We're the remnant holding the kingdom standard. Amen. Amen, Paula. Read Another Gospel by Alyssa Childers. I like listening to her on YouTube, but I'm not familiar with that book. But I'm definitely going to check that out. We're on about pragmatism and syncretism. True that. We shouldn't be. Bro, I'm right there on your side. It's not really controversial because it's truth, but God's truth is a stumbling block. Preach it. Absolutely. It is a huge stumbling block. First Corinthians chapter 1 and 2. All right, what else we got here? Speak the truth in love. Live your life as a living witness. Amen. Amen. Not always easy, especially in these crazy times. Tell me about it. When I got that old crazy message the other day, whoo, you know, Vody Bo could be talking about bad Vody, bad Eric was wanting to pop up, and I was wanting to go off in that fool. But I kept my cool, prayed for him, thought about the incident, and used it as fuel today to really get me going. And I started just creating content and working on all my ebooks and my website, because I'm really planning on doing some things, y'all. Keep me in prayer when it comes down to some of my goals for this coming year. But that just motivated me. When you get the ridicule and the mockery and you know that you're on the side of right, instead of letting that suppress you or silence you, use that as motivation. Use that as fuel. Because Lord knows that's what I did today. Amen, Will. Always. Facebook parolee. Been a Facebook jail inmate 6 times. Hey, and you're still here? Hey, you're doing something right. You know, I've never, as crazy as it is, I've never been to Facebook jail. I've been warned. They've threatened me, but somehow I managed to get around it. I'm sure somebody's probably listening right now, and they'll make sure I get there. Television programming. Ooh, good choice of words. Good choice of words. Has accomplished his mission. No question about it. Because that's what it is nowadays. It is complete and total indoctrination. For God hath not given us a spirit of fear, but a power and of love and of a sound mind. Amen. Amen. Glory to God for that. So we have to be bold, y'all. And we have to know where to get we have to understand that, and I was saying this earlier, we have to understand that the media is not our friend nowadays. They have a clear political agenda. And I've been wanting to do a video talking about the media lies. Some of the things that woke me up, literally woke me up from assuming that certain news outlets, because they've been around for a long time, were reliable and honest. And I clearly saw examples where that just was not true, where they purposely cut information out in order to make you think a certain way. And once I saw that on more than one occasion, I was like, done. It was CNN. I stopped watching this is before I got saved. I stopped watching CNN, MSNBC years ago, when I saw one of their broadcasters basically mocking the idea of biblical creation. They were just mocking it. And once I saw that, I was like, okay, I'm done with these guys. But then as the years went, I used to watch The Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer almost religiously. Every day I would watch it. But then as time went on, I just started seeing problems with their broadcasts and with their sharing of stories. It was clearly skewed a certain way. And I wasn't even claiming to be anybody's conservative or Republican back then, not even close. But I started noticing little bits and pieces here and there. And it just got progressively worse as time went on. So nowadays, I can stomach them about as far as I can throw them, to be honest with you. Rejoice when they mock, for it shows we are speaking truth and they are seeking to suppress it. Amen. It's tough to remember at that time, at those moments. Sometimes you it can bug you, but that is the right mentality, Dwayne. That is the exact perspective we need to keep. I appreciate you sharing that with me. So now we will get on to the last segment of this video. What I really wanted to talk about the most is the most tragic part of this entire day. Where's this video at? There we go. We remove this here. And I'm going to share this next video. Hold on 1 second, y'all. This last bit talking about the main thing I posted on, where we talk about the shooting in Illinois. Give me a second here. I'm doing what James White does when he has some silent time. Why is it not one to pull up? I have it right up here, but it's not here on my. Give me a second. Okay, I got it. Thank you for being patient with me, y'all. Appreciate that. Sometimes this whole streaming thing doesn't work quite the way you want to, but I see y'all are still sticking around and paying attention. Who posted this? I don't know if you can trust. Yeah, you notice I didn't bring them up. I did use one of their news articles, but I don't watch them routinely. I may watch Tucker a couple times a week, once or twice a week, but I don't typically watch Fox. I just don't like their style, even though I think that, like Brett Baer, I think there's some guys you can watch who are pretty much just reporting the news. I'm not a big fan. I much prefer, I'm a huge Epic Times. I get their solid newspaper. I get the digital paper. I love Epic TV. They just deal with so many controversial topics, and their reporting and their investigative journalism is, their investigative journalism is top notch. I love what they do. And I know they have some affiliation with NTD News. I just love their style and their format. Love it. So that's my main, they're my main source, of when it comes down to news. They're the ones I rely on the most because they report solid stuff and a lot of local news agencies. Even though you still have to be careful about that, there was a local news report that talked about the investigation, Whitmer investigation over the attempted kidnapping out of Michigan. And man, I was just stunned to hear that the FBI agent was very radically anti-Trump. And I was just stunned to see the solid way they reported and investigated it. It just blew my mind. I was like, what is this? What am I watching? It was weird to see someone who wasn't a report that wasn't so biased. It was really weird. But let's get into this one right here, y'all. I appreciate y'all sticking around. And so we can go into this. Heartbreaking, beyond heartbreaking. Suspect denied bail and senseless execution, quote unquote, of Bradley Police Sergeant Critical and critical wounding of officers. We're going to watch this video, and then I'm going to read some of the actual article that goes into detail as to what exactly happened. I'm not sure if this video does, but I'm going to read some of the article that goes into some of the details, and it's just chilling. Sure.
Tonight, Kankakee County state's attorneys are calling for the death penalty for 2 defendants involved with the murder and attempted murder of 2 Bradley police officers.
New details about that incident revealed today paint a terrifying picture.
Anthony Ponce is live tonight with more.
Tia and Corey, Illinois is not a death penalty case, but for this case, Kankakee County prosecutors have actually approached the U.S. Attorney General's office and asked them to consider it a federal murder case. And the Kankakee County State's Attorney has even submitted a formal request for federal death sentences for both defendants involved.
Wow, that's pretty crazy. But hey, do what you got to do.
During a bond hearing today for 26-year-old Zandria Harris, the Kankakee County State's Attorney said body cam footage from 49-year-old deceased officer Marlene Ritmanek recorded her pleading with 25-year-old Darius Sullivan not to shoot her. Sergeant Ritmanek was pleading with them to just leave. You don't have to do this. Please just go. Please don't. Please don't. She was desperately pleading for her life, State's Attorney Jim Rowe told the court. Rowe went on to say Harris played a huge role in Ritmanek's death, having blocked her and her partner, 27-year-old Tyler Bailey, from entering their hotel room and disarming Ritmanek after she'd been shot 1 time. Sullivan fired the shots which killed her and critically wounded Bailey, but Rowe said Harris helped Sullivan cock his gun and helped disarm Ritmanek.
I mean, just think about it, honestly. And we discussed it earlier with the image from the Fraternal Order of Police talking about the number of police ambushes and police officers shot and police officers killed via gunfire. The mindset that you have to have these days in order to do that. The police are there for lawful reasons. Incident ends up where you're gunning down 2 cops. And in cold blood. That's nuts. But once again, there's been an image painted of cops these days. I've done some studies and found that on average, there are somewhere in the neighborhood of over 375 million police contacts that citizens have in our country every year. The police come in contact with citizens in various degrees, whether it's socially or asking questions or crime related to a crime or an investigation, whatever, over nearly 400 million times. And on average, over the last few years, since the Washington Post started reporting incidents of police uses of force, police shootings, cops shoot about 1,000 people. Okay. And that number is used to alarm and rage people and get people acting all kinds of wild. But then, okay, let's look at some additional data. Every year, the FBI puts a uniform crime report. Actually, it's called the Law Enforcement Officers Killed or Assaulted report. Every year, the FBI puts it out. And typically, around 60-70% of the 18,000 police agencies across the country participate. They share information. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 50, this last couple of years has been a lot higher, nearly 50,000 officers are assaulted violently each and every year, where it results in injuries or even their death. So you have 50,000 incidents where officers are assaulted. And I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 14, like 10 to 14,000 of those cases involve a potential deadly force encounter where the officer is assaulted with a gun or a knife or a blunt object, a vehicle. So if you examine that information, if you look at roughly 10,000 times where officers probably could have used deadly force and didn't for whatever reason, And then you look at the number of people that are actually killed by the police. Look at the sheer volume of contacts that the police have with the public, the number of times they're assaulted on an annual basis, and then the number of people they actually kill. We should be celebrating cops instead of ridiculing and mocking and belittling them and calling them racist and evil based on the level of restraint that they demonstrate. People are always talking cops need to learn de-escalation tactics. Trust me, the vast majority, you don't even hear about the vast majority of times where officers use de-escalation and it works because it's boring. No one wants to hear about the time the officers talk someone down from a building. That doesn't make major news. That doesn't make national news. All people want to hear about is when that cop shot that white cop shot that unarmed black dude. That's all people want to hear. Anyway, let me get back to the video. Sorry about that.
I will be submitting an official request to the U.S. Attorney General to review the first-degree murder case pending against Darius Sullivan and Zandria Harris for federal murder charges and pursue a federal sentence of death against both defendants.
Wow.
Rowe told the court before the judge denied bond.
I'm shocked that they denied bond.
Ritt Mannix' partner, Tyler Bailey, is critically wounded. He is right now fighting for his life in the hospital. A GoFundMe fundraiser for Bailey has already raised more than $73,000.
Hey, if you could, y'all if anyone can find the link to that GoFundMe for that officer, I think he said Bailey. If you can find that link and post it in the chat, that would be cool, because if we can help out, that would be pretty awesome. If we can pitch in a few bucks, because who knows what his physical state will be if he survives this. If he survives this, who knows what his physical state will be.
We are live downtown tonight. Anthony Ponce, Fox 32.
Pretty nuts, y'all. Let me make sure the video doesn't go into something crazy. But back that up real quick, because I want to read a little bit of what went down. I want to read a little bit of what went down here the details of this arrest, or this attempted arrest. You got to hear this. On December 29th, 2021, Bradley Police Sergeant Marlene Ritt-Manick and Officer Tyler Bailey, that's his name, Officer Tyler Bailey. If you can find the GoFundMe that helped raise money for him and post it in the chat, that would be awesome. Responded to the Comfort Inn and Hotel in Bradley regarding barking dogs that were left in the vehicle. When Officer Bailey arrived at the scene around 9:56 p.m., he ran the plates of the suspect vehicle, which registered Zandria Harris, prosecutors said. Officer Bailey then entered the hotel lobby where he met with Sergeant Ritt-Manick. Bailey then asked a hotel clerk if there were any rooms under Harris or Darius Sullivan, as Bailey had knowledge that Harris was usually in the presence of Sullivan. Bailey also knew Sullivan was wanted for an outstanding warrants of arrest for failure to appear in court. FTA, failure to appear. So he was wanted. So they had legal justification for being there. It wasn't like these folks just came around, the police came around just harassing them. They were legally justified in being there. So keep that in mind. When confronting the pair, they were found in a room at the hotel. Sullivan allegedly pointed the firearm at Officer Bailey and shot him in the head. Sullivan then allegedly fired his first shot at Ritt-Manick as she attempted to flee the kill zone. Okay, as we go down further, okay, yeah, they were probably seeking to place him under arrest. So it said, let me back up. Sergeant Ritt-Manick, as she was attempted to flee the kill zone, prosecutor said Sullivan then allegedly chased Sergeant Ritt-Manick down the hall of the hotel and pinned her up against the door. At that time, Sullivan's firearm jammed, and he was attempting to unjam his firearm using his hand and mouth, while also attempting to disarm Sergeant Ritt-Manick of her weapon with his other hand. So he's taking her gun and trying to unjam, clear his weapons malfunction. As Sullivan and Sergeant Romanek were struggling, Harris walked down the hallway of the hotel, and Sullivan allegedly told Harris to, quote, cock the gun, in regard to his jammed firearm. Harris allegedly reached around the waist of Sullivan and assisted him in attempting to cock the firearm and or disarm Sergeant Rittmanek, prosecutor said. Once Harris and Sullivan disarmed Sergeant Rittmanek, they stood over her as she was on the floor. Harris stood over Sergeant Rittmanek while holding Sullivan's firearm. Sullivan then allegedly told Harris to give him the keys. As she handed over the keys, Sullivan allegedly fired 2 shots from what is believed to be Sergeant Rittmanek's duty weapon, striking her in the throat and the neck. At the time Sullivan fired the fatal shots into Rittmanek, Rittmanek was pleading with them to just leave. You don't have to do this. Please just go. Please don't. Please don't. She, quote, she was desperately pleading for her life, Rose said. Rose said the courtroom was packed with family and authorities Wednesday morning as Sullivan appeared in court virtually. Wow. Miss Paul, thank you, Paula. She just posted the link to the GoFundMe. If we can go over there and drop off a buck or two or whatever you can, that would be awesome. It's in the comments down below, y'all. So, wow. Barking dogs to execution. I mean, that's heartbreaking. That I get a little emotional about that because especially understanding the nature of a police call. When you go on these calls, your average everyday officer ain't looking for trouble. They're not looking for problems. They go there because somebody calls and there's a problem. And that's why they say that there's no such thing as a routine call. Because just as Paula said, it goes from you're there for a barking dog, then you have a wanted suspect, to now you have one officer fighting for his life and one sergeant who lost her life. That fast, that quick. I want to see the body cam footage. I don't know if it's out yet, but I want to see the body cam footage just so I can better share information like this with y'all, especially for current or aspiring officers. I think it's just a good lesson, a good reminder to understand that the very nature of this job, it is a potentially deadly job. No question about it. Some people argue, well, man, they go by the what is it? Some government agency, maybe I forget the name of it. Some government agency that says, well, policing isn't the most dangerous job because they don't even rank as far as the most dangerous. But typically, when the labor division does their reports, they are typically talking about accidents, workplace accidents, and policing doesn't rank high in that area. But when it comes to jobs where homicides or assaults are more likely, the police pretty much trade off on an annual basis with the corner store clerks, people, 7-Eleven employees, people like that. As far as what job has the most homicides or violent assaults, corner store, gas station, clerk, employee, and law enforcement. That's real. And I think oftentimes as officers, you're out there, as time goes on, most situations don't escalate. They don't get ugly. You can get complacent. You can let your guard down. And we can't do that. You cannot do that. They were trying to serve a warrant for his arrest. He had an active warrant. Yeah, I just read that when I was reading through the article. Yes, sir. And once again, the GoFundMe page here, y'all. But I don't know, y'all. What do y'all think? What are your thoughts on this whole incident? It's tragic. It's horrendous. It's heartbreaking. And in a culture that basically hates the police, this is the kind of thing that you'll get. when it, oops, I didn't want to put that up there yet. Excuse me. In a culture that pretty much hates the police, this is the kind of thing that you'll get. And it's sad. And it's promoted from every realm, and there are no repercussions politically, celebrities, sports, you name it, media. The hatred is real. So once again, getting back to one of the primary points that I was making in this episode, we have to be consistent. We have to speak up. We have to speak out on these issues. And we can't be silent, y'all. We cannot be silent. We have to speak out and stand on truth. Ooh, so good. I was just reading that a couple of weeks ago. As the scripture says, people's hearts have waxed or grown cold. Absolutely. Absolutely. But I want to thank y'all for swinging by and stopping by and participating in my live today. I plan on going live again Friday, Lord willing. And I'll be dealing with the issue. There was a recent, or actually it was from last year, there was a police department. One of the topics I'll be discussing, just to give y'all a sneak preview, those of y'all who stuck around, I thank you very much. There was a police department that somewhere in Atlanta, somewhere in Georgia, that started teaching officers, to shoot suspects in the leg or in the pelvis to quote unquote incapacitate them. As if that isn't what cops are already trying to do when they shoot at someone. But I really want to do a deep dive on this topic and get your opinion and share my thoughts on this whole thing and how dangerous I believe that mindset of shooting to quote unquote incapacitate, which is already what cops do. But I saw a good video and a good report on it, and that'll be one of the few topics that I'll be discussing. I have a few other ideas, and if you have any more, make sure you comment or you reach out to me on Code Red Conversations on Instagram or on Facebook or on YouTube, or Eric Muldrow on my own Facebook page, and toss some of your ideas, some of the topics you would like to see me cover. My goal is to go live at least twice a week. That's my goal. I pray that I stay consistent. That's my goal. That's my desire. And I thank y'all again for joining me, sticking around. Love y'all. I appreciate it. Work on those goals for 2022. Don't be one of the 80% who quit early. If you need help with any issues when it comes to weight and staying motivated, hit me up. I'll help you because I love all that kind of stuff. So, and I'm pretty knowledgeable in the fitness realm. And if anyone's not familiar, I had a pretty cool transformation a couple of years ago where I dropped about 60 pounds. So if you need any help with that, hit me up. Seriously, hit me up. And as always, in the meantime, stay safe. God bless. And make sure you join the conversation. Oh, one more thing. If you're still there, hopefully y'all are still around. Dwayne, I apologize, brother. For those of you who are still around, real quick. Me and some of the brothers, Dwayne Haney, as a matter of fact, who's here. We and another brother, we are working on a project where we will be discussing pop culture, movies, comic books. We'll be discussing all kinds of content like that. So if you're interested in anything like that, if from a biblical perspective, and we're gonna have a lot of fun while we do it. We're working on our content. Hopefully we'll put out the first video in this coming week. I'll talk more about it next time around. I missed out. Like I said, I just saw his comment just now. But next live, I'll also reference it as well. We're still working on a name for what we do. But if you're interested in wrestling with the issues when it comes to the movies and comic books and things like that, fun pop cultural things, with from a different avenue, in particular a biblical one, you guys will enjoy what we're trying to do. So I'm bouncing out of here. I'm going to let the closing credits. If you like my closing credits, let me know. But once again, y'all, in the meantime, stay safe, God bless, and make sure you join the conversation.